grateful to President Putin for the significant amount of time that he made available to this discussion, for his directness, and for his very detailed explanations of Russia's position with respect to some of these challenges.
Secretary of State John Kerry speaking after meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier this week, as we welcome you back into Newsmax Prime. Russia back in the news today after NATO has pledged to counter what it's calling hybrid warfare coming out of Moscow. For more, we're joined by the former Hungarian Ambassador to the United States, András Simonyi, who joins us from Newsmax Washington. Good evening, Ambassador, and thanks for joining us here on Newsmax Prime.
Thank you so much. You look great. You must have had a nice time during the day. Good evening.
It's good to be with you, András. Well, a busy day keeping track of news and NATO trying to keep track of the Russians. NATO is now describing hybrid warfare as conventional, subversion, and cyber war, and says as the world changes, NATO has to adapt. Now, we paint that picture to ask you this, András. What do you believe is Putin's end game?
Well, Putin's end game is very clear. He wants to split Europe and the United States, and he wants to drive a wedge between Europeans themselves. And I think hybrid warfare is the name of the game. My expectation is that Putin might want to make further advances militarily in Ukraine, but I think he will keep on teasing the West, European democracies, and the way to do it is through hybrid warfare. My question is, why are we, I spent 10 years as the ambassador of Hungary to NATO. I would say that I'm a little surprised how slow we are to react to his hybrid preparations for hybrid warfare. But you know what? It's good we're doing it.
So better late than never, understood. András, we also take a look at the reemergence. Back in the old days, we called it Sino-Soviet cooperation. Now it's Russia and China reopening their cooperation. How serious a threat is that to NATO and the U.S.?
My belief is that Russians are miscalculating the Chinese. I don't think it has ever been a great friendship. I don't think it's going to be a great friendship in the future. If the Russians think this is going to take down the West, they're totally wrong. I think the Chinese are far more strategic, far more forward-looking. And, I think China has a pretty clear design on the Russians. Vladimir Putin is doing this tactically to position himself against the West, building new relationships. But at the end of the day, I honestly think that the Russians will regret this relationship.
Well, we have spoken before about Putin and what his designs may be, and of course, as a former KGB apparatchik and one who figured prominently in the intelligence apparatus of the Soviet Union prior to the change there, it seems that he's trying to resurrect Russia as a neo-Soviet Union, or is that an exaggeration, András?
No, it's not an exaggeration. I think that's on his mind. I think he regrets the falling apart of the Russian or the Soviet Empire. I think he regrets that democracy has taken hold in Central Eastern Europe, and I think he's actively engaged in weakening some of the Central European countries in their efforts to build a strong democracy. I don't want to name countries, but I have to tell you that I'm worried. He's using his energy leverage to the maximum, but he's also intruding into the elites of these societies. We have not been careful.
Was the meeting of the Secretary of State with the President of Russia useful for the United States?
I just hope there was something in the background we don't know about which made this trip worthwhile.
That's a very diplomatic answer, Mr. Ambassador, and I do appreciate that.
I hope diplomats can be diplomatic, but I hope I was crystal clear on that.
I think we can read between the lines that just to show up and say, hey, how are you, might not be in the best interest of the United States. At least that's what I believe you're telling me here. There's something that's
well, you know what
Yeah.
I want to be very clear about is that Putin is receiving Western leaders in Russia, and for him this is really the most important part, that he can tell the Russian people, look, they're all coming to see me. You know, the Secretary of State of the United States, whom, as a matter of fact, for Russia, only two people matter in the United States. It is the President and the Secretary of State. So if Secretary of State comes to see me in my dacha in Sochi, that's a pretty big media coup, you know. So this is the way we have to look at it. For Putin, this is about telling the Russian people that, look, even the Americans come and see me, and they're asking to see me, and they're asking my help on this and that, so we're a big power again. I think we should not be fooled by that.
Before we go, you're a fan of a lot of Americana, including a man who just passed from the scene, B.B. King. 15 seconds for you to reflect on that great musician.
I will miss him. You know, I grew up on rock and roll. B.B. King was my superstar. I think Americans and all the people across the globe who love blues music and rock and roll music will miss him badly.
And it shows the influence that music can have, even on the world's key diplomats. András Simonyi, we thank you so much for your time and appreciate your insights. Newsmax Prime will continue right after this.